After the divorce, the house always felt too quiet. The walls echoed with memories I didn't ask to remember, and evenings stretched long like shadows I couldn't escape. I worked from home as an art consultant, emails, virtual gallery calls, catalog reviews. The kind of work that fills time but never fills a void. Sophie, my only daughter, had gone off to college 2 years ago. We spoke now and then, though never deeply. She had grown into her own life, and I had accepted the quiet kind of motherhood that comes after raising someone who no longer needs you daily. So when she said she was coming home for a few weeks, and bringing her boyfriend, I didn't know how to feel. Nervous? Curious? I hadn't met him before. His name was Jared. She said he was kind, funny, and serious about her. And when they walked in the door that Friday afternoon, I saw exactly what she meant. Jared was taller than I expected, with a casual handsomeness. Not the kind that tried too hard. He didn't need to. There was a calm confidence in how he held himself, how he smiled, how he looked me directly in the eyes when he introduced himself. "It's really nice to finally meet you, Ms. Carter," he said. "Just Lena," I replied, feeling silly for being so aware of my age in that moment. I hadn't felt that in a long time. Dinner was a blur of catching up, laughter, and family stories. Sophie told him about my obsession with 90s music, and Jared teased me about still using a landline. He was warm, polite, and too charming. But I dismissed it. I was being ridiculous. Over the next few days, I noticed little things. Jared always offered to help with dishes. He laughed a little too long at my jokes. When Sophie would step away, even for a moment, his eyes would linger, not in a disrespectful way, but in a way I felt. And hated myself for noticing. One night, after they'd gone out with friends, I sat on the couch scrolling through my phone. The silence had crept in again, like it always did when I was alone. I checked Instagram out of habit, flipping through stories, liking a few random posts. That's when I saw it, a message request. From Jared. My thumb hovered over it for a second. Then I tapped. "You looked really beautiful tonight. Hope that's not weird to say." The message hit like a jolt of electricity. Not because of what it said, but because of who said it. I stared at the words, reading them over and over. Beautiful? Tonight? I had only worn a plain black blouse and jeans. Nothing special. Nothing that warranted that. I set my phone down, heart pounding in my chest. This had to be a mistake. Maybe he meant it for someone else. Or maybe it was just a joke. He was young, playful. Maybe he was just being friendly. But then, friendly messages don't make your stomach twist and your cheeks flush. I didn't reply. I couldn't. But sleep didn't come easy that night. The next morning, Jared acted completely normal. Made coffee. Laughed with Sophie. Asked if I needed anything from the store. He never mentioned the message, and I pretended I never saw it. But I had. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. I told myself it was harmless. He was just being sweet. Maybe he'd had one too many drinks that night. Maybe he regretted it. Maybe it was never supposed to be serious. But deep down, something inside me stirred. Something I hadn't felt in years. Desire? No, not quite. It was attention. And it was addictive. A few days passed. I didn't mention it. I even thought it might stop there. But the next message came after another quiet evening, once again when they were out. "You didn't respond last time. Maybe I crossed a line. But you are beautiful, Lena. Can't help what I notice." This time, I didn't delete it. I reread it. Again and again. I typed out a dozen different replies, all of them ending with the word no or this is wrong. But I never hit send. Instead, I waited until midnight, when the house was dark and I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. My fingers moved before I could talk myself out of it. "That's sweet of you. But it is a little weird." Seconds later, a reply. "Then let's keep it our little secret." I put the phone down on my chest, staring into the dark room. I couldn't breathe. I should have felt ashamed. Instead, I felt alive. In the days that followed, I couldn't stop thinking about that message. About the way he looked at me when Sophie wasn't paying attention. About the way his hand brushed mine when we reached for the same dish towel. About the heat in my chest that had nothing to do with the summer sun. He never brought it up again in person. But the messages continued, short, playful, always skirting the line of impropriety. And I kept replying. Never overt. Never bold. Just enough to keep the fire lit. I told myself I was just being polite. That it didn't mean anything. That if nothing physical happened, it wasn't really wrong. But deep down, I knew better. And yet, I didn't say no. He didn't message every day, but when he did, it was always late, after Sophie had gone to sleep, after the house had settled into silence. His texts weren't explicit. They were emotional, clever, personal. Like he knew exactly how to weave his words just loose enough to make them feel innocent, and tight enough to make them dangerous. It's crazy how easy it is to talk to you. I don't feel that way with most people. Or, you make this house feel calmer. Like a place I can breathe. I began to crave them. Not Jared, necessarily, but the connection. That pulse of attention, that electricity he sparked in me just by noticing I existed as more than Sophie's mom. And I knew it was wrong, every word of it. But it had been years since someone looked at me like I was worth seeing. The conversations stayed digital, even though we were just rooms apart. During the day, Jared played his role perfectly. The dutiful boyfriend. The friendly guest. He helped with groceries, fixed a loose cabinet hinge, even offered to mow the front lawn. And when our paths crossed in the kitchen or the hallway, there was always an unspoken tension, one he was much more comfortable carrying than I was. I caught him watching me more than once. Not with lust exactly. With interest. Intent. One evening, while Sophie was out with her old high school friends, Jared stayed behind, citing a headache. I was folding laundry in the living room when he walked in with a glass of water and offered to help. We talked about nothing and everything. Music. Travel. How he wanted to start his own business one day. He listened when I spoke, really listened. Not like someone who was just being polite, but like someone who wanted to remember every detail. Then he said, casually, "You know, if things were different, I'd probably be asking you out right now instead of helping you fold socks." I froze. My hands stilled in the warm fabric. I looked at him, waiting for him to smile, to laugh, to say he was joking. He didn't. He just held my gaze, calm and steady. "You shouldn't say things like that," I whispered, my throat dry. "But I'm thinking it. Isn't that worse?" I didn't reply. Instead, I picked up another towel and folded it too quickly, hoping my hands would stop shaking. He didn't press it. Just helped finish the pile, then excused himself. But that moment lodged itself in my chest, tight and hot, and I knew something had shifted. I stopped sleeping well. Every sound made me alert. Every message made me flush. I found myself putting on a little mascara in the mornings, wearing my nicer tops, choosing perfume I hadn't touched in years. I told myself it was for me, but I knew better. Sophie didn't suspect anything. If anything, she seemed happier that Jared and I were getting along so well. She teased me about being more stylish lately, and I laughed along even as guilt twisted in my stomach like a dull knife. Jared kept his distance just enough to not raise alarms, but the messaging never stopped. One night, he sent a voice note. "Sometimes, I think I met the wrong Carter woman first. Just saying." I listened to it twice before deleting it. And yet, hours later, I responded. "Be careful with your words, Jared." He replied, "Only if you ask me to." That night, I lay awake for hours, watching the ceiling dance with shadows. I told myself I should confess something to Sophie. Or at the very least, tell Jared to stop. Block him. End it. But I didn't. Because every time I tried to end it, I remembered how alive I felt reading his messages. How intoxicating it was to feel seen again. Like someone wanted me for something more than just being a mother. The turning point came a week later. Sophie had gone to visit her father for the weekend. I almost told Jared he should go home too, but I didn't. Part of me wanted the house quiet again. Part of me wanted to see what would happen when it was just the two of us. That evening, I cooked dinner, a simple pasta with a glass of wine. Jared asked if he could join me. I said yes. We ate at the table, side by side instead of across. Talked like old friends. Laughed like we had some shared secret, which, I suppose, we did. He helped me wash the dishes. We stood close, too close. When I turned to grab a towel, my elbow brushed against his. He didn't move. I didn't either. For a second, we just stood there in silence. The room pulsed with something unspeakable. Then he leaned in, his voice low. "I think about you more than I should." I stared at the sink, heart racing. "This isn't a game, Jared." "I know." "You're with my daughter." "I know." "Then stop." He reached for the towel and gently took it from my hand. You haven't asked me to. I should have screamed. Should have ordered him to leave. Should have deleted every message and told Sophie the truth. But I just stood there, breathing hard, looking at the curve of his jaw, the softness in his eyes. Later, after he'd gone to bed and the house was still, I sat in the dark with my phone in hand. No new messages. I typed one. This needs to end. But I didn't send it. Instead, I put the phone face down and whispered to no one. I don't know how. The house felt heavier after that night. Not louder, not fuller, just weighted by everything unspoken. I went about my usual routine, watering the plants, checking emails, preparing meals, while my mind stayed lodged in that moment by the sink, where his breath had mingled with mine in the thick quiet. Nothing had happened. Not physically. But something had absolutely changed. Jared kept his distance the next day, sensing the tension. Or maybe respecting the invisible line I'd drawn in my own mind but hadn't really enforced. He still smiled when he passed me, still offered to help with little things. But the messaging stopped. And that silence hurt more than I'd expected. It made me wonder if he'd finally come to his senses. If he realized the danger. If he was afraid. Or, if he was waiting for me to make the next move. The weekend passed slowly, thick with silence and heat. Sophie returned on Sunday evening, buzzing with energy after her visit with her dad. She hugged me, talked about the beach, and laughed when Jared met her at the door like a puppy eager to see her. Watching them embrace stirred something sharp inside me, jealousy, regret, disgust with myself. I excused myself early that night and lay in bed with the lights off, alone with my thoughts. Monday morning, I woke up early. The house was quiet. I walked into the kitchen to make coffee and found Jared already there, standing by the window in nothing but sweatpants and a t-shirt, sipping from a mug. He turned and smiled. Morning. I hesitated, then nodded, crossing to the sink without a word. I could feel his eyes on my back. I wasn't sure if I should say anything, he said after a moment. I didn't turn around. You shouldn't. But you didn't stop me, he added softly. I finally faced him. His expression wasn't smug or playful. It was vulnerable. Real. I didn't stop you because I didn't want to make it worse, I said. And I thought maybe you'd forget about it. I didn't. I swallowed hard. You're with my daughter, Jared. I know. And I didn't plan any of this. But it's not just in my head, is it? I said nothing. Because denying it felt more dishonest than admitting it. Then he took a step forward, slowly, giving me space to pull away. I didn't. He reached for my hand, barely touching it, like asking permission. I should have walked out, screamed at him, called Sophie, done anything but what I did. But I stood still. And when he leaned in and kissed me, I let him. It was soft. Lingering. Nothing frantic or rough. Just a moment stolen, one that should never have happened. I pulled away first. My breath caught, heart pounding. This is a mistake. His voice was low. Then tell me it meant nothing. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. That was worse than saying yes. Footsteps echoed down the hall, and panic surged through me. I stepped away, grabbed the coffee pot, turned my back to him. Sophie appeared in the doorway, hair messy from sleep. Morning, she mumbled, wrapping her arms around Jared. Did you guys already start coffee? He turned to her, perfectly composed. Just about to pour your mom a cup. My hands shook as I reached for a mug. For the rest of the day, I avoided them both. I left the house for hours, something I hadn't done in weeks. Drove aimlessly. Stopped at a lake and just stared at the water. My reflection didn't feel like mine. I didn't know who I was anymore. When I got home, Jared was gone. Sophie was in her room with headphones on, humming along to some upbeat track. I slipped into the bathroom and cried into a towel, silent and aching. That night, my phone lit up with a new message. I don't regret it. I stared at it, then slowly typed, I do. Then deleted it. Then typed it again. Deleted it again. I turned the phone off and left it face down on the nightstand. The following morning, Sophie confronted me. You've been weird lately. Are you okay? She asked, sitting at the foot of my bed. I forced a smile. Just tired. Work's been overwhelming. She nodded slowly, not fully convinced. And Jared's been kind of distant with me. My heart clenched. Relationships can feel off sometimes. Maybe it's just a phase. She looked at me like she was trying to see something deeper, but she didn't press it. She stood and left the room. I knew what I should do. Come clean. Burn it all down and let the truth cut where it needed to. But I also knew what that would mean. Losing her trust, destroying her world, breaking what little mother-daughter bond we had left. So I said nothing. 2 days later, Jared left without warning. He told Sophie he needed space, that something inside him felt unsettled. She was devastated. She cried for hours, and I held her through it, guilt poisoning every breath. I never messaged him again. And he never messaged back. The house returned to its silence. But it wasn't peaceful this time. It was haunted, by what I allowed, by what I craved, by what I never confessed. Weeks passed. Sophie began healing slowly. One afternoon, while packing for her return to college, she found an old framed photo of the two of us, me in my 30s, her as a child on my lap. "Why don't you look like that anymore?" she asked playfully. I smiled, but my eyes watered. "I'm still in here somewhere." She left the next morning with a tight hug and a long look. She didn't know the truth. Maybe she never would. But I did. And now, every time I walk past a mirror, I wonder if the woman staring back at me is someone I'll ever forgive.